The alarm blared through the International Space Defense Force headquarters at exactly 3:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Commander Jack Davis looked up from his coffee, his weathered face illuminated by the flashing red lights. 20 years in the ISDF had trained him for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for humanity's first contact with an alien species. "What do we have?" Davis asked, striding into the command center. Lieutenant Wilson pointed to the main screen. "Unknown craft, sir, appeared suddenly at the edge of our lunar monitoring range. No matching signatures in our database." The object on screen moved with deliberate precision, following a controlled approach vector toward Earth. It wasn't the chaotic tumble of space debris or the predictable arc of a meteor. This was piloted. "Weapons status?" Davis asked. "The craft appears to have defensive capabilities, but no weapons are powered up. They're maintaining a non-threatening posture," Wilson replied. Davis nodded grimly. "Open all communication channels. Let's see if they want to talk." For 3 tense hours, the world's governments were notified as the alien craft established a stable orbit. Then, unexpectedly, a transmission came through, crystal clear and in perfect English. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Luminary, travelers and researchers. We come in peace to study your unique world." Within 24 hours, a diplomatic party had been assembled. The aliens had agreed to meetings aboard their vessel, but refused repeated invitations to land on Earth. Davis had been selected to lead the human delegation. The Luminary ship was unlike anything humans had engineered, organic curves and materials that seemed to glow from within. Most striking was the complete absence of shadows. Every surface emitted a soft, ambient light that eliminated any darkness. The aliens themselves were equally fascinating. Standing about 7 feet tall, their skin had a faint luminescence, like moonlight through thin clouds. Their eyes were large and entirely white, with no visible pupils. They moved with graceful efficiency. "We welcome you aboard our research vessel," said the lead alien, who introduced himself as Captain Vetra. "We have studied many worlds, but yours has unique properties we wish to understand better." Davis noted something in Vetra's manner, a nervousness that seemed at odds with their advanced technology and apparent confidence. The diplomatic meeting proceeded smoothly until Davis proposed extending their talks into the evening. "We must decline," Vetra said abruptly. "Our biological cycles require rest during that period." Davis might have believed this explanation if not for what happened next. As Earth's night shadow approached their orbital position, the Luminary ship fired its engines, adjusting course to remain in daylight. Back at headquarters, Dr. Anna Martinez, the team's xenobiologist, presented her findings. Their physiology shows dramatic changes when exposed to even simulated darkness. Heart rate equivalent increases by 340%. Stress hormones flood their system. They exhibit what we would classify as extreme panic responses. "They're afraid of the dark?" Wilson asked incredulously. "Not the dark itself," Martins corrected. "Their reaction suggests an evolutionary response to something associated with darkness." Davis studied the Luminary ship's orbit pattern on the main screen. It maintained a perfect position, always in Earth's daylight, never crossing into night. "They're terrified of something," Davis said quietly. "Something that comes with the night. And whatever it is, they believe it's here on Earth." As if confirming his suspicions, a new message arrived from the Luminary ship. "We respectfully request all future communications occur during your daylight hours only. This is non-negotiable." Davis looked at his team. "Find out what scares a spacefaring civilization so badly that they won't even enter Earth's shadow. Because whatever it is, it's been here with us all along." Dr. James Reed adjusted his collar nervously as the transport shuttle docked with the Luminary vessel. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, he had studied theoretical alien life for 15 years. Now he would become the first human to live among an extraterrestrial species. "Remember your mission," Commander Davis said, gripping Reed's shoulder. "You're our eyes and ears up there. Find out what they're hiding about Earth's night. Reed nodded. I'll report everything I can. The airlock hissed open, revealing Captain Vetro waiting with two other luminary. Their tall, slender forms seemed to shimmer with internal light. Welcome, Dr. Reed, Vetra said. You honor us as our first human guest. Reed stepped aboard, feeling the slight difference in gravity. Everything around him glowed with soft light. No matter where he turned, there were no shadows, not even under his own feet. Your quarters have been adjusted for human comfort, Vetra explained, leading him through corridors that curved like river paths. We hope you will find them suitable. Reed's room was spacious with what appeared to be a bed, though it hovered slightly above the floor. Most striking was the lighting. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Is it possible to dim the lights? Reed asked. For sleeping. The three luminary exchanged quick glances that Reed didn't miss. We can provide you with an eye covering, Vetra offered. Our species requires constant illumination. Over the next 3 days, Reed was shown their research facilities. The luminary technology was beyond anything humans had developed. Engines that bent space, materials that changed properties with thought, and medical equipment that could heal injuries instantly. Yet Reed noticed peculiar contradictions. Despite their advanced science, the luminaries seemed primitive in their understanding of darkness. Their historical records showed no night photography, no astronomy from their home planet's surface, and their art depicted only daylight scenes. On the 4th day, Reed gained Vetra's trust enough to ask more direct questions. I notice we always maintain orbit on Earth's day side, Reed said casually as they observed Earth through a viewing portal. Is there something about our night that concerns you? Vetra's luminescence dimmed slightly. Our sensors work optimally in photon-rich environments. But surely advanced beings like yourselves have overcome such limitations. Reed pressed. Vetra turned to him, the glow from his eyes intensifying. Dr. Reed, some limitations exist not because they cannot be overcome, but because they should not be. That night, or what passed for night in the constantly lit ship, Reed couldn't sleep. He slipped out of his quarters and made his way to the command center he had visited earlier. Using techniques taught by ISDF intelligence, he accessed the ship's historical database. The images he found chilled him. Historical recordings showed luminary cities under attack from shifting, impossible shadows that moved with purpose. Entire populations disappeared overnight. Star systems abandoned. Reed was so absorbed in the recordings that he didn't notice Vetra enter the room. You shouldn't be seeing this, Vetra said quietly. Reed turned, expecting anger, but saw only fear in the alien's eyes. What are they? Reed asked. We call them the Void Walkers, Vetra replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. They hunt in absolute darkness. They consume light and life. We fled across 12 galaxies to escape them. And you found them here on Earth, Reed realized. That's why you won't cross into our night side. Vetra moved to the viewing portal, looking down at the beautiful blue planet partially covered in darkness. Your Earth has the highest concentration of Void Walkers we have ever detected, Vetra said. And yet, somehow, your species survives each night. This is what we truly came to understand. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying there's something in Earth's darkness. Something that's been there all along. Not just something, Dr. Reed, Vetra corrected. The oldest and most dangerous predators in the known universe. And you humans sleep peacefully in their hunting grounds every night. Lieutenant Talia Gray had always been drawn to mysteries. It's what made her perfect for military intelligence. While the diplomatic team focused on the luminary ship orbiting Earth, Gray dug through historical records in the ISDF's underground archives. You've been down here for 3 days straight, said her assistant, Officer Miller, placing a fresh cup of coffee beside her. Commander Davis is asking for updates. Gray didn't look up from her screen. Tell him I found something. Something big. On her display were images from ancient civilizations spanning thousands of years. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sumerian tablets, Chinese scrolls, and Native American cave paintings, all showing similar figures, tall, glowing beings fleeing from shadowy forms. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a Mayan carving. They called them star walkers who feared the night hunters. Same in ancient India, Africa, Mesopotamia, different names but identical descriptions. Gray pulled up another file, a collection of medieval accounts from across Europe. These monks wrote about beings of pure light who appeared briefly before sunset and begged for sanctuary inside churches. They always disappeared by morning. Miller leaned closer. "You think these are the luminary? They've been here before. Not just been here. They've been running from something," Gray replied. "Something that hunts in darkness." That evening, Gray encrypted a message to Dr. Reed on the luminary ship. The response came hours later. "Asterisk, your findings match what I've discovered. The luminary call them void walkers. They believe Earth is infested with them. Need more information. What happens to humans who encounter these things?" Asterisk. Gray spent the next day collecting reports of unexplained phenomena during night hours throughout human history, ghost sightings, missing persons, and strange shadow figures seen from the corner of the eye. The patterns were disturbing. "Look at this timeline," Gray told Commander Davis during their secure briefing. "Every major luminary sighting in our history is followed by increased reports of shadow figures and missing persons." Davis frowned. "Are you suggesting these void walkers follow the luminary to Earth?" "No," Gray said, pulling up a global map dotted with incident markers. "I'm suggesting they're already here. Always have been. The luminary don't bring them. They're fleeing from them." She showed Davis a file from the 1950s, classified military reports of strange radar shadows that appeared only at night. "We've been detecting them for decades without understanding what we were seeing," Gray explained. "These entities exist partially out of phase with our reality. That's why we only catch glimpses." Davis studied the reports. "If they're so dangerous, why haven't they wiped us out?" "That's the billion-dollar question," Gray replied. "Either they can't harm us for some reason, or what? Or they're already doing something to us we don't recognize as an attack." That night, Gray set up monitoring stations around the city, calibrated to detect the energy signatures identified in the old files. At precisely 3:17 a.m., every station registered a surge of activity. Gray called Reed immediately. "We've confirmed anomalous energy patterns during night hours. Multiple locations. They're real." Reed's voice came through, tense with excitement. "The luminary are in a panic. They detected a massive movement of void walkers on Earth's night side. Something's agitating them. Our presence. The luminary ship?" "No," Reed replied. "Vetra believes the void walkers are reacting to being noticed. They've lived alongside humans undetected for thousands of years. Now they know we're looking for them." Gray watched as her monitoring equipment showed the energy signatures changing, concentrating. "Reed, they're not just random patterns anymore. They're organizing." Through the video feed, Gray could see Reed's face pale. "Get somewhere bright. Now." Vetra says, once they start hunting consciously, darkness becomes their weapon. As if responding to his words, the lights in Gray's office flickered. In the brief moment of darkness, she saw it, a deeper shadow with form and purpose, watching her with awareness that felt ancient and hungry. The lights stabilized, and the shadow vanished. "Reed," Gray whispered, "I think I just saw one. And I think it saw me too." The luminary had arranged a diplomatic dinner aboard their ship. Dr. Reed sat with Captain Vetra and 3 high-ranking Earth officials, including Commander Davis. The table itself emitted a soft glow, like everything else on the alien vessel. "We hope this shared meal strengthens the bond between our peoples," Vetra said, offering dishes that resembled colorful fruits and vegetables. Reed noticed the aliens ate nothing dark-colored. Everything on their plates was bright or translucent. He wondered if this, too, was connected to their fear. Commander Davis steered the conversation toward cooperation. Your technology could help solve many of Earth's problems. We hope this is the beginning of a lasting friendship. The luminary nodded politely, but Reed could see their attention wasn't fully present. Every few minutes, they checked monitors showing the ship's position relative to Earth's day-night terminator line. Halfway through the meal, alarms began blaring. Reed had never heard such sounds on the ship before. "What's happening?" Davis demanded as the luminary jumped from their seats. Vetra's skin pulsed with agitated light. "A rare solar event. Your moon is moving between Earth and the sun." Reed realized immediately. It's just an eclipse. It happens regularly. It will only last a few minutes. But the luminary were already rushing to the command center, leaving their guests behind. Reed gestured for Davis to follow as they pursued their hosts through the glowing corridors. Inside the command center, chaos reigned. The view screen showed the moon's shadow sweeping across Earth below them. The ship's engines had fired to maximum power, desperately maintaining position in sunlight. "Why are you so afraid?" Reed shouted over the alarms. "It's just a temporary darkness." Vetra's second-in-command pushed past Reed to reach a control panel. In the confusion, Reed saw a door open to a section of the ship he'd never been allowed to enter. Making a split-second decision, he slipped inside. The room contained a massive database, the true historical archives of the luminary. Unlike the sanitized version he'd been shown, these records were raw and uncensored. Reed quickly connected his translator device and began downloading files. The images were horrifying. Planet after planet fallen to darkness. Billions of luminary consumed by shadowy entities that seemed to bend reality around them. The Voidwalkers didn't just kill, they erased entire civilizations from existence. But the most shocking revelation came from the recent scans of Earth. The data showed that Voidwalker activity on Earth wasn't just high, it was impossibly high. By the luminary's measurements, Earth should have been consumed centuries ago. Reed downloaded everything he could before slipping back out. By then, the eclipse had passed, and the luminary were regaining their composure. "I apologize for our reaction," Vetra said upon seeing Reed. "Such events trigger instinctual responses." That night, Reed couldn't sleep. He reviewed the stolen data, finding one file particularly disturbing: a biological analysis of humans. The luminary had discovered something about human physiology that both confused and terrified them. Reed immediately contacted Lieutenant Gray through their encrypted channel. "The luminary aren't just researchers," Reed explained. "They're refugees. Their entire civilization was nearly wiped out by the Voidwalkers. They've been fleeing across the galaxy for centuries. Why come to Earth if it's so dangerous?" Gray asked. "Because they don't understand how we survive," Reed replied. "Earth has the highest concentration of Voidwalkers in the known galaxy. By their calculations, we should all be dead." On the screen, Gray's face paled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying humans have evolved alongside these entities. Something about us is different." Reed pulled up the biological scans. The luminary found that humans have neural pathways that no other species possesses, pathways that activate only in darkness. "Are you suggesting we're connected to these things?" "I don't know yet," Reed admitted. "But I know the luminary are terrified of finding out. Because if humans can survive among the Voidwalkers, then we might be more dangerous than the hunters themselves." Gray finished quietly. As if confirming his words, the lights in Reed's quarters flickered briefly. In that moment of darkness, he felt, rather than saw, a presence watching him with ancient curiosity. Lieutenant Gray assembled her team in the ISDF's underground bunker. The room was filled with monitoring equipment hastily gathered from research facilities around the world. "This operation stays completely off the record," Gray told the 5 specialists she had personally selected. "What we're hunting doesn't officially exist." Dr. Morgan, a physicist, raised his hand. "These energy readings you've shown us, they break several laws of physics. That's why you're here, Gray replied. To rewrite those laws if necessary. The plan was simple but dangerous. Monitor locations with high reports of shadow sightings and unexplained phenomena. Gray had mapped these incidents across decades, finding patterns no one had noticed before. Team Alpha will take the abandoned subway station, Gray explained. Team Beta, the old lighthouse. I'll take the forest clearing. All locations have had multiple sightings in the past month. As darkness fell, Gray positioned herself in a small clearing surrounded by ancient oak trees. The location had a history stretching back centuries. Native Americans had called it the watching place and refused to enter at night. Later settlers reported strange lights and missing livestock. Gray activated her equipment. She wore special glasses designed to detect wavelengths beyond normal human vision and carried sensors that measured energy fluctuations. All teams, check in, she said into her comm unit. Alpha team, all clear. Beta team, minor anomalies, but nothing concrete. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Then, at exactly midnight, all her equipment went dead simultaneously. The forest became unnaturally silent. Teams report, Gray whispered into her comm. No response. The temperature dropped suddenly. Gray's breath formed clouds in the cold air. She reached for her flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Neither would her backup light or phone. In the pitch darkness, Gray felt something change. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light anymore. It had presence, weight, awareness. I know you're there, she said aloud, surprising herself with her courage. I can feel you watching. Nothing happened for several long moments. Then, in her peripheral vision, she caught movement. When she turned to look directly, there was nothing. But when she looked slightly away, she could see them, shaped darker than the darkness, moving with purpose. Gray remembered what Reed had told her about human neural pathways that activated in darkness. Acting on instinct, she stopped trying to look directly at the shapes and instead allowed her peripheral vision to track them. They were all around her now, tall, shifting forms that seemed to bend the night around them. They moved closer, curious rather than threatening. In that moment, Gray's comm unit crackled to life. Reed's voice came through, tense with excitement. Gray, I got Vetra to tell me everything. The Void Walkers aren't what we thought. They're not hunters. They're guardians. Gray stood perfectly still as one of the shadow forms moved directly in front of her. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its ancient intelligence assessing her. What do you mean, guardians? She whispered. The luminary evolved on a planet with constant daylight, Reed explained. When they developed space travel and encountered darkness for the first time, they disturbed ancient entities that existed before our galaxies formed. The shadow before Gray seemed to nod, as if confirming Reed's words. These entities protect the balance between light and dark, Reed continued. The luminary's light-based technology was disrupting that balance. The Void Walkers weren't hunting them. They were containing a threat. Then why do they let humans live? Gray asked, though she was beginning to understand. Because humans evolved in both light and darkness, Reed replied. We're part of the natural balance. The neural pathways the luminary detected, they're not a coincidence. They're an evolutionary adaptation. We can perceive the Void Walkers without being a threat to them. As if responding to these words, the shadow before Gray extended what might have been a hand. Without thinking, she reached out. For a brief moment, she felt a connection to something vast and ancient, not malevolent, but deeply, profoundly other. Then all the lights in the forest suddenly came back on, and the shadows vanished. But Gray knew they were still there, watching from just beyond human perception. Reed, she said quietly, I think they just introduced themselves. We need to see them clearly, Dr. Reed insisted, not just glimpses at the edge of vision. Commander Davis looked skeptical. You want to capture one of these Void Walkers. Not capture, Reed clarified. Observe. Under controlled conditions. 3 days after Gray's encounter in the forest, The ISDF had established a special facility deep underground. The main chamber was a perfect sphere lined with sensors and cameras designed to detect energy across all known spectrums. Reed and Gray stood behind thick glass as technicians made final adjustments. Captain Vetra had reluctantly agreed to join them, though the luminary leader stayed near the exit, visibly uncomfortable. "The chamber is ready," announced Dr. Morgan. "Complete darkness in 3, 2, 1. The lights shut off. At first, nothing happened. The monitor showed only empty space. "Try the new filters," Gray suggested. Morgan adjusted the settings, and suddenly the screens revealed what human eyes could not see directly: a swirling pattern forming in the center of the chamber, like smoke gathering into a shape. "Remarkable," Reed whispered. "It's partially out of phase with our reality." The shape continued to form, becoming more defined. A tall, fluid entity with limbs that seemed to both exist and not exist simultaneously. It moved with deliberate grace, exploring the chamber's boundaries. "It's beautiful," Gray said. Vetra shuddered. "You cannot comprehend what you're seeing. These entities have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Or perhaps those civilizations misunderstood what they were seeing," Reed countered. "Just as your people did." On the monitors, the Void Walker suddenly turned toward the observation window. Though it had no visible eyes, everyone felt its attention focus on them. "It knows we're watching," Morgan said nervously. Reed activated the microphone. "We mean you no harm. We seek understanding." The entity responded by changing form, shifting into a shape that resembled a human silhouette before dissolving back into its natural state. "It's mimicking us," Gray realized. "Trying to communicate." Vetra stepped forward, his luminous skin pulsing with anxiety. "In all our history, no one has ever communicated with them. They are destruction incarnate." "To your people, perhaps," Reed said, "but not to humans." Gray pointed to new readings appearing on the monitors. "Look at these brain wave patterns. They're synchronized with human delta waves, the exact frequency our brains produce during deep sleep." Reed's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "That's it. Humans spend a third of their lives in darkness, in sleep. Our brains are already attuned to their frequency. You're suggesting humans and these entities have co-evolved?" Davis asked. "More than that," Reed replied excitedly. "I think we've been in communion with them our entire evolutionary history. Dreams, inspiration, intuition. What if these are forms of communication with the Void Walkers?" The entity in the chamber seemed to respond to Reed's excitement, growing larger and more defined. Vetra backed away. "This is dangerous foolishness. These beings feed on conscious thought. They devoured half our population in a single cycle. Or perhaps," Gray suggested quietly, "they were responding to your fear. Your people see them as monsters, so monsters they became." On the monitor, the entity had grown still, as if listening. "The human mind is remarkably adaptive," Reed continued. "We evolved to process both light and dark. We don't fear shadows. We created stories about them. Ghost tales, monsters under the bed, things that go bump in the night. All ways our ancestors tried to understand these entities." "Look," Morgan pointed to the screens as the entity began dividing, forming multiple smaller shapes that danced around each other. "They're not just individuals," Gray whispered. "They're a collective consciousness." Reed turned to Vetra, whose light had dimmed to a frightened glow. "Your people evolved in constant light. You never developed the neural pathways to perceive them properly. But humans, we were born in the interplay of light and shadow. We see them for what they truly are." "And what is that?" Vetra asked, his voice barely audible. The answer came not from Reed or Gray, but from Commander Davis, who had been watching the shadowy dance with growing awe. "They're the oldest intelligence in the universe," Davis said. "And they've been watching over us all along." The luminary prepared to leave Earth orbit. After the revelation about the Void Walkers, Captain Vetra had decided their research mission was complete. The findings were too dangerous to ignore. On the observation deck of their ship, Vetra met with Reed, Gray, and Commander Davis one final time. Earth hung below them, half in daylight, half in the darkness that so terrified the luminary. "Our council has reviewed all data," Vetra said, his light dimmer than usual. "We will recommend that all spacefaring civilizations avoid your solar system." "You're putting us under quarantine," Davis observed. "For your protection as well as ours," Vetra replied. "The entities you call Void Walkers are ancient beyond comprehension. Your casual relationship with them is unprecedented." Reed stepped forward. "But you're missing the opportunity here. If humans can communicate with them—" "That is precisely what concerns us," Vetra interrupted. "No species should have such power. These entities exist partially outside our reality. They can move between dimensions, manipulate energy, and possibly even time itself. In the wrong hands." "You assume we would use this connection as a weapon," Gray said. Vetra's light pulsed. "Wouldn't you? Your human history is filled with weaponizing every advantage you find." No one could argue with that assessment. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Reed broke it. "What if we could prove that our relationship with the Void Walkers is symbiotic, not exploitative?" he suggested. "Would that change your recommendation?" Before Vetra could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A junior luminary rushed into the observation deck. "Captain, multiple ships have entered the system. The Krillic battle fleet." On the main screen, 12 angular vessels appeared, moving rapidly toward Earth. Unlike the organic curves of the luminary ship, these were all sharp edges and weapon ports. "Who are they?" Davis demanded. "Scavengers," Vetra said grimly. "They follow us between systems, waiting until we discover habitable worlds, then take them for themselves. They must have detected our transmissions." "You led them here," Gray accused. "Unintentionally," Vetra admitted. "But yes, and now they will attempt to claim your world." Davis was already contacting Earth's defense systems, but the worry on his face was clear. "Our weapons are no match for advanced alien technology." The lead Krillic ship transmitted a message, harsh, guttural sounds that the luminary translator converted to English. "Attention, primitive world. Your planet is now property of the Krillic Empire. Surrender or be cleansed." Vetra's light dimmed further. "I am sorry. We should never have come here." Reed had been quiet, thinking. Now he looked up with determination. "There's another option. Night is falling over the Pacific Ocean right now. The largest population of Void Walkers on the planet will be active." Gray understood immediately. "If we could somehow communicate with them, let them know about the threat." "Impossible," Vetra said. "You cannot control these entities." "We don't need to control them," Reed replied. "Just introduce them to our visitors." Davis hesitated only briefly before making his decision. "How do we do it?" Reed turned to Gray. "You made contact in the forest. They responded to you." Gray nodded slowly. "I'll need to be in darkness. Complete darkness." 30 minutes later, Gray stood alone in a darkened chamber aboard the luminary ship. Reed had convinced Vetra to allow this one desperate attempt, though the captain remained deeply skeptical. Gray closed her eyes, focusing on the sensation she had felt in the forest, the ancient awareness that had touched her mind. "We need your help," she whispered into the darkness. "Not for ourselves, but for our shared home." At first, nothing happened. Then the darkness around her deepened, gaining weight and presence. She felt rather than saw them gathering. On the bridge, Reed and Davis watched as the Krillic fleet moved into Earth orbit, weapons powering up. Vetra stood apart, his skin barely glowing with fear. "It won't work," the luminary captain said. "You cannot." He stopped mid-sentence as every light on his ship suddenly flickered. The main screen showed the same happening to the Krillic vessels, power fluctuations rippling across their hulls. Then darkness seemed to flow across space itself, engulfing the invading fleet. Not the normal darkness of space, but a deeper, living shadow that moved with purpose. The Krillic ships fired wildly, their weapons passing harmlessly through the shifting void. One by one, their lights went out, their communications filled with panicked screams before cutting to silence. In less than 5 minutes, the Krillic fleet was gone, leaving only empty space. Gray returned to the bridge, her eyes wide with wonder and responsibility. They understood. They protected their home, our shared home. Vetra's light had dimmed to almost nothing. "What have you done?" Reed answered with quiet certainty. "We've shown the galaxy why Earth must be left alone. Not because we're weak, but because we have the most powerful allies in the universe." Davis looked out at the stars, suddenly seeing the darkness between them with new respect. "They've always been with us, haven't they? In every shadow, every dream." "Yes," Gray replied. "And now the galaxy knows why aliens fear the night."